Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, please.
Regular meeting of Washington, Missouri City Council, October 16th, 2017, 7 p.m. Brinker.
Here.
Heidrich.
Aye.
Holtmeyer.
Here.
Moheski.
Here.
Patke.
Here.
Skornia.
Here.
Sullentrup.
Here.
Waterman.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Will all the council members answer if they have or have not read the minutes of the council meeting dated October 2nd, 2017? Brinker?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Moheski?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Skornia? Yes. Sullentrup?
Yes.
Waterman?
Yes.
Having read the minutes, are there any comments or questions? Any corrections?
Make a motion. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Sullentrup, seconded by Moheski, to approve the minutes from our last meeting dated October 2nd, 2017. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the minutes. Thank you.
Approval and adjustment of agenda, including consent agenda. You do not have anything under the consent agenda.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Do we need a motion to approve that then?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Brinker, seconded by Patke, to approve
Approve nothing.
to approve the agenda, the non-existent consent agenda?
Approve the agenda.
Nothing.
Oh, excuse me, to approve the agenda.
Approval and adjustment of agenda.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We've approved the agenda. Thank you.
Priority items, mayor's presentations, appointments, and reappointments. Police Department reappointments.
Okay, this evening we have two reappointments to our police department. The first is Patrol Officer Greg Garrett and Patrol Officer Casey Hill. And both of these would be for one-year appointments, as always. So their appointments, looks like we have a typo here, but their appointments would end November 3rd, 2018. So anyway, Officer Garrett is here tonight. All right.
Stand up.
There he is. Stand up. Oh,
Thank you.
okay. Anyway, Chief?
So Officer Garrett and Officer Hill are both veteran officers. Officer Garrett started with us in 2002, but before that, he was a cadet with us for a few years. Then he went to another agency and came back. And next year he will be an SRO at the middle school or high school. Officer Hill started with us in 2010, worked on the road, and then became a school resource officer for a few years. Now this last year he's back on the road. Both have exemplary records, are dedicated to service the community in this city, and I recommend them for reappointment.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments?
Motion. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Sullentrup, seconded by Heidrich, to approve the reappointments of Patrol Officer Greg Garrett and Patrol Officer Casey Hill. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the reappointments. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Public hearings, special use permit, 1209 Deer Run Drive.
Okay, Sal?
All right, yes, I am going to give a little background on how we got here first before I get into the specific property. After the August solar eclipse, we realized there were a number of properties online that were listed on a website called Airbnb, which is a home share website where you can rent out rooms for short-term lodging. We knew this was a popular way to lodge, and when we did the code amendment back in, well, it was just last year, we decided to kind of narrow down our definition of short-term lodging. We had 4 or 5 different definitions in there, from tourist home to Airbnb to our bed and breakfast. We had a number in there, so now we narrowed it down to a traditional bed and breakfast where it's owner occupied, and then a vacation rental by owner where it can be owner occupied, but the home can be rented out without the owners there while the guests are staying. And so typically we would see if anyone would come in and saying they're using, having their home be an Airbnb, they would be under our code defined as a vacation rental by owner. So that's kind of how the definition works. And I know there was some, we needed some clarity at the last few meetings on that just because it wasn't a long-term rental. It is short-term, typically for one weekend. The code does specify no longer than 60 days though. So that is the max that our code allows. So after the eclipse, we realized there were, I think we found 7 or 8. I think there was 8 online that were currently listed that had rooms available. It was either during the eclipse and they hadn't taken it down, or they did show they were available afterwards. And it was a concern with some existing bed and breakfast owners because we have a 5% tourism tax that all hotels, motels, and bed and breakfasts have to pay 5% on each transaction to that tourism fund. So one, it was, well, we need to get everyone in here is listed on Airbnb. One, we need to get them in and registered for that tourism tax so it's a level playing field. And two, if they're outside of that downtown district, if they're outside of the C3 or the C2 overlay, and so C3 is typically downtown and C2 overlay is 5th Street, just south of downtown, they have to also get a special use permit. So that's why we're here tonight. I sent out, I think, 6 letters because there were 6 that were outside of that downtown. It said, you know, you have to get a special use permit and you also have to sign up for this bed tax. Most of them came back and said, 3 of them came back and said, you know, we just had it up for the eclipse. We heard it was, you know, there was going to be a shortage of lodging, and then they said they're no longer going to have that use in their home. So we didn't worry about it. We didn't hear back from 1, and then 2 came in and originally said, yep, you know, we are going to continue to do this. You know, 1 said they just did it for the eclipse, and this actually 1209 Deer Run did say, you know, they weren't aware that this was a local rule we had, and they had been doing it for about a year. And so we had them submit the special use permit, and then we started this process at Planning and Zoning last week. So the first one we had was 1209 Deer Run. You can see it, this is Deer Run Drive, is right off of Beaker Road, just south of Washington Heights Drive. And you can see here, it is completely zoned. The entire neighborhood is zoned R1A, single-family residential. The surrounding area is also zoned that way. You can see there is some higher density here with the duplexes, but in reality, everything south of 100 there, all that residential development is all R1A, single-family residential. You know, originally when they came in, you know, staff did have a recommendation. You saw in our staff report that we did recommend approval of this. It is a fairly low-intensive, infrequent use that comes in on the weekends. This particular home did not have, you can see in the aerial, access that, you know, to additional parking. So there would be some parking on the street for when guests were staying. You know, that could be added a detriment to the surrounding properties. The staff saw it as an infrequent enough use that it wouldn't be anything more than a birthday party or a gathering at any home in the neighborhood. So we didn't think of that as too much of a detriment that it needed to be denied by staff's point of view. I will say, however, it went to P&Z last Monday on October 9th, and they did vote to deny the request via an 8-0 vote. So that's really all I have on this. It's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions of me.
How long has the ordinance been affected for all this?
Well, we've had, you've had to have a special use permit to have a vacation rental or a bed and breakfast if you're outside of downtown since '88, I guess.
Yeah, we've had that on the books
existence
for a long time.
So it's not new with the new code. We just cleaned it up in the new code and cleaned the definition.
We recognized that you were going to have these vacation rentals because, I mean, it was already a trend then, and then.
And they fall under these?
Yes.
Yeah. I think beforehand we had the special use permit. It was called a tourist home, but it didn't specify, it specified the amount of people, not the length of stay. And so we took that definition, we just scrapped it. And we did bed and breakfast where it's owner occupied, and then vacation rental where it does not have to be owner occupied no longer than 60 days, which is still pretty long, but that was the recommendation from our consultant.
When somebody does come to the city and get a business license for this, they would go through the occupancy inspection too?
Yes, so whenever someone comes in and they get their license for that, the license office is good about calling down to the building inspector and saying, you know, do they have an occupancy for this? So the most recent one we did that actually got the special use permit was The Brick Rose Beds and Donuts, right here on Fifth Street, they redid the home knowing what they were, already had building permits because they knew they were renovating it for, but whenever they got their license, and signed up for the tourism tax, our building inspector went out there and made sure. The biggest thing is you have to have, your bedrooms each have to be adequate for the building code, and you have to have exit signs in the home, because if you have people who are not familiar with the home, in case of a fire, they have to know how to get out.
Are the exit signs required then in this type of
Yes, yep.
facility as well?
Bed and breakfast or vacation rental, yes, they have to have.
So you have to have the exit homes?
Yeah.
Or the exit signs?
I don't know if it's the ones that are on, I mean, they maybe will have one you can attach with a switch in case, because if you're not renting out every weekend, you may be able to reattach it. I'm not entirely sure that would be for the building
That's
inspector,
also a
but-
requirement, smoke detectors probably?
Yep.
Okay.
So it doesn't kick them into a commercial setting, but there are just a couple more guidelines they have to follow than a typical residential home.
Okay.
How many people were listed that this was available to rent to, this particular location? So how many people could rent the home or the rooms?
The room.
I think it was listed for one bedroom.
And it was
One
in the
bedroom.
basement.
Right.
It's in the basement.
I think this was, this particular one, it said listed as one bedroom. Our special use permit does not specify that. They could, if approved, they could rent it out the entire home while they're not there. So
There's not, it's not tied to any specific.
yeah, because their ad said we're renting out one room, we're not concerned with that. It's are you using the home for this use? You have to make sure the whole home meets the occupancy guidelines and gets the required
Yeah, we're not going to go
permits.
by room.
Right.
Right.
Adequate egress.
Right. So the entire house would have to pass inspection, even if they just have one bedroom listed online. Because once one person gets this permit, we're not going to follow up with all their ads, because there's
Right.
13 websites they could advertise on, so.
But if you do the inspection, there's a bedroom downstairs, it needs to have an exit downstairs, don't
It would have to pass, yeah, it would have to meet the regular building code.
Window egress, correct?
Yeah, I mean, whatever meets the.
Same as the single
minimum
family.
code. Yeah.
On what grounds did the planning and zoning people deny it 8-0? Did they?
That it was incompatible with the surrounding area and would be a detrimental use to the existing neighborhood.
That was their concern.
Okay.
Have we thought about, why is only downtown required not to have a special use?
Well, C3 is.
Mixed-use
Yeah,
district.
it's not necessarily just say downtown district, it's C2 overlay and C3, because those are already mixed use. So you could come in with, a retail use and then have a single-family home side by side already. So it'd be silly to have someone come in with a special use whenever that use is already permitted, already, so.
Is this a public hearing?
Yep. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who would like to address the council on this particular issue? If so, please come forward, give your name and your address. And not knowing how many we're going to have, we'll try to make this run smoothly.
Hi, I'm Nancy Helfrich, and this is my husband, John Helfrich. We were here before last week and then the week before. We can speak for almost everybody in the subdivision. We definitely do not want this. We have a detrimental parking problem that's horrendous now. And then when they have people there, it's almost impossible to get on that side of the street. If anybody wanted to park, you couldn't park there. But even more, we want it to stay as a single-family subdivision. As we bought and built in this subdivision, we want it to remain that way. The houses are pretty close together, and we just don't want to do it. We just don't at all. So I want other people to come up if they can and speak on it as well. But if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, you have given us a copy of signatures from the
Yes,
neighborhood.
everybody in the subdivision signed it And the two people that didn't sign it didn't like it, but they were friends with them, and so they didn't sign.
And is this the same list you brought to
Yes,
planning and
it's
zoning?
the same one. I'm sorry, you've
No,
seen
that's
it
fine.
before.
I just wanted to make sure you had.
But it's everybody. It's the same one.
Okay.
And it just is, everybody has said the same thing, that they just don't want to even go there. We don't want it, you know, and it's more of the, and then when we found out that it's, once it passes that house, those people can move, and it stays with the house. And you, like they said last week, Stephen Kinsel said it better than I ever could. I didn't buy my home and build it to have a hotel across the street. And once it's there, it's there.
The zoning follows the property.
Yes, yes. And, you know, it's not what we signed up for.
Very
But
good.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions for anybody?
Any
You
questions?
sure? Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Is there anyone else?
My name is Gary Vaughn. I live on 1209 Vaughn Drive. And to me, this is a family neighborhood. And we know each other. We take care of each other. I mow grass for people over there. And to me, the key is knowing our neighbors in the subdivision. And the people that come and go there, we don't know them. And we don't know who they are, what they do, and how they do things. They might be nice people, I don't know, but we don't know that. And the lady that last week said, the one that was wanting to rent out, she says that they need their letters of recommendation, their license and stuff. Anybody can write a letter of recommendation. It's easy. Anybody can write something down and make you look good. And these people that are wanting to do this, they're not going to be there forever. And most of us here, I've been here since 1993, almost 24 years now. And I saw people come and go, lots of neighbors, they come and go, and then I don't want to see, you know, something like this come along and destroy our neighborhood. We loved our neighborhood. We take care of it. And when they talk about having this place in the basement, a bedroom in the basement, I feel that it's not to code because of the windows. When you have a fire code, I believe the windows got to be 20 inches from the floor. I'm not exactly sure, but all the basement windows are between 40 and 45 inches from the floor. So there will be no child can jump up in that window when there's a fire or something like that. And we worry about the property value a lot. And I didn't know when they were building the basement and the rooms if they had a building permit or inspection for a business. Like, you know, when you have a business, you got to have inspections, you got to have permits. I had an addition built on my house, and I had to have all that stuff. So, you know, they should too. You know, and I don't have a business. I'm just building a house because I want it to be nice. So, to the conclusion of all this, none of us really wants this. We want to keep the zones the way it is now and not change anything. I thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Gary.
Sure.
Anyone else? We have one here.
Diane Marrs, 680 Scenic View Drive, Union, Missouri. I'm not a neighbor, but I am a vacation rental owner and host for the past 10 years, and I've hosted over 10,000 different guests. I come from the point of the industry expert view. I also consult for HomeAway.com. I also teach vacation rental hosting and owner worldwide. And being in this business and hosting many, many people, I can tell you that hosts are very much concerned about their own property as well. They're concerned about the guests coming in. They do screen them. They don't want just anybody in their area, in their home. I mean, they're sharing their home with these people. And they do have to have verifications. They have to have ID. There's reviews. It's definitely a process, and they want to know why they're in the neighborhood too, okay? They don't just say, oh yeah, give me some money and you come stay at my place. It doesn't work that way. They will also keep up their property probably better than a lot of neighbors because they have to keep their place presentable and people want to come stay. I can tell you that my property in Union that I rent out, it was actually a drug house. Police were called there many times, and as soon as I found out that these long-term tenants were dealing drugs, I immediately removed them. It is now one of the cutest little houses on the neighborhood, and my neighbors are extremely happy. My current guests there are from Arkansas. Last weekend they were from Massachusetts, and I have guests coming in from Alaska next week. People are coming all over. They don't want to just stay in a 3, 4, 5 bedroom house in downtown. There's also people wanting to come in for business. I've hosted ladies from the UK coming in for business to Trilogy here in Washington. And, you know, there's just 2 hotels in Washington, one in Union, and they're regularly booked out. And so my personal experience with home sharing is it's something that is not just a trend, but it's becoming very viable. It's becoming something that people share their homes. They do make a little bit of extra money. And as long as, you know, you guys definitely put an ordinance there that there has to be the inspections, go the appropriate ways, but it's not something that brings property value down. From what I've seen, it's always brought the property values up.
So I have a question. You were
Yes, ma'am.
talking about the home that you're speaking of that was a drug house, and
Yes.
now you have fixed it up. Do you live in that home, or is that more considered a home just that you rent out?
That one I rent out. I do not live in that one.
Do you advertise that as an Airbnb then?
Absolutely. I'm Airbnb, HomeAway, and my own personal website as well, and social media.
Okay, but is that located in a general neighborhood?
Mhm. It's in Union. Yep, on Hoover Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't, because we were talking about having the owner live.
Right, and with, I know
which is
with
a little
the,
different.
The 2 that you have, yeah, the home sharing's a little bit different. I mean, and it's even more so because they're inviting somebody in their home with them, with their family, so they're going to be even more very, very stringent with who they're going to have. They won't have
wanted
just
to
anybody.
Clarify that.
Yes,
Okay,
thank
very
you.
good. All right, thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Janet Judeman, and I live at 1213 Deer Run Drive, which is the property right next to 1209 Deer Run Drive, where the Airbnb is being proposed, actually is being run for the last year. And I would argue with our main concern is with our property values. My husband and I bought this property as our retirement home, and many of the neighbors that we know in our neighborhood are in the same situation that we are. This is their retirement home, and this neighborhood, we want to maintain the integrity of this neighborhood as for what it is. And everything that I have read, I've done some research online, and the realtors websites that I have gone to have said that property values are affected by Airbnbs when they come into these subdivisions, and detrimentally. And that's our concern. This is our investment. This is what we're counting on as we age, and at some point we may want to sell this property to fund, you know, whatever kind of care we might need in our old age. And so we want our property values to go up, not down, and that is our main concern at this point. John and Sarah, who live at 1209 now, It's our understanding that they may not be there long-term, and at some point, not just the basement will be rented out, but the entire house possibly. We live right next door. Right now, we're seeing all the comings and goings that have been going on over the last year on this property, and it's a little disconcerting to look out my kitchen window and see people going back and forth to their car on the street. But our main concern is our property value. This is our investment, and we want our investment to continue to go up, or at least stay the same, not go down. And everything I've read shows that although this is a trend that's starting, this Airbnb, this neighborhood was zoned residential, and we want to keep it that way.
Did I understand you to say that they've been doing this for over a year already?
It's been going on for a year. We were led to believe that when we, we're friendly with John and Sarah. They're good neighbors. We don't have anything against them personally. When they were renovating their basement, they told my husband, John told my husband, that they were doing it to provide accommodations for his mother-in-law for when she came to visit. And then when we were seeing people kind of coming in and out of this basement door, which is right across, the back of our house, looks out. So when we're in our living room, or I'm in the kitchen, or we're in the kitchen, we see the door that these people come in and out of. And it was not a lot at first, but it's become more noticeable, and we thought it was family and friends that were coming to visit, and that was our assumption until just in the last few weeks when I was talking to Sarah one day. She kind of reluctantly told me that that they've been using it as an Airbnb, and we had no idea. So that's when we started kind of looking into it, and like I said, the research that I've done, all the benefit of an Airbnb out of your own home is to the owner of that home and who's doing the Airbnb. The benefit is not to the surrounding neighbors. And that's what our concern is.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Janet. Mm-hmm.
Leon Hovey, 128 Lake Washington Drive. One of the problems that I see, according to your codes and the permit structure, is that once you give a permit to the property, it stays with the property, and there no longer is any control over the number of people or how often, how frequently any of this is rented. It's all good and well to say that, oh, I'm home sharing and I'm going to be there and I'm going to take care of it, and I want to be sure that everybody's got all these credentials and they're checked out. But you no longer have any control over that, and neither do the neighbors. Mm-hmm. Once you give them a permit, they can rent to one couple, one person, or 10 couples, or 15 people. There are no limits. They can rent for 1 night, 3 nights, or up to 60 nights. And your own code says that the vacation rental by owner is not occupied. If you look at your code, that's what it says in there. It doesn't say anything about owner occupied. It says not owner occupied.
Okay.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Leon. Okay. Anyone else? Oh.
Hello, I'm Mike Stelzer. I live at 103 Lakeview Ridge, which is in the other neighborhood where this other application was applied for. I personally think the whole point of this, what it all boils down to, is we're in a democratic country with a democratic process, the same way you guys were all elected. It wasn't who had the cutest story but the least votes got you in. It was the most votes. And in these neighborhoods where most of the people say we do not want this, that's the way it should go, because that's the democratic process of it's for the most of the people, not the few. It has nothing to do with any lack of rooms. I still don't know if it's true, because they were going to build a hotel over by the cinema that they did not build because apparently there wasn't a need for it. If there's a need for it and these people want to rent out rooms, let them buy that lot and build a hotel and be in business, because it has nothing to do with ruining our neighborhoods, turning them into commercial, because they are all, pardon my nerves, I'm not used to this. They are all based on single-family, peaceful neighborhoods, not businesses. If you want to be in a business and live in a business area, pack your stuff up and move downtown. Last week we heard, oh, they're doing this in Europe. If you want to live like they live in Europe, pack your crap up and go to Europe. We don't care. We want our neighborhoods like they were when we bought them, with the restrictions intact for single-family homes, and that's it. So whether somebody from Union or Pakistan or somebody else votes and tries to tell you that this is what we need, it should only be based on what the people in that neighborhood want, what the majority wants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else?
I'm kind of curious, is John and Sarah here?
I don't see him.
See him.
Okay, so we need to accept this into the minutes, right?
Correct.
Where's the ordinance?
There's no ordinance on here tonight. It was just a
Okay.
hearing.
Okay, so it's just the hearing tonight. Okay, so we will
Take a motion.
take a motion to accept this
Second.
into the minutes. So, did you make the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Sullentrup, seconded by Holtmeyer, to accept this item into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item into the minutes. Thank you.
Special use permit, 112 Lakeview.
That's been withdrawn.
We got a letter last Wednesday. That one has been withdrawn.
Okay.
So,
Is there anything to do with it then? No motion or anything needed?
No.
Just a motion to accept the
Motion to
withdrawal.
accept in the minutes, the withdrawal.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Moheski, seconded by Hydrich, to accept the withdrawal of the special use permit request at 112 Lakeview Drive. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote.
I wanted to get one thing on the record, if I could, regarding that property.
Well, I don't think we're going to have the hearing, are we? I
You
mean,
don't need to.
Yeah, there's no hearing.
they've withdrawn it.
For now.
Well, if they have another one, there'll be another hearing. I mean, obviously, if they come, it'll go to planning and zoning and back to city council again.
But it can't be for 6 months, can it?
That's only for a rezoning.
Well, it's only if it's
Is it-
denied too.
Right.
Okay, so I have a question.
So it'd have to be an ordinance to deny it.
Next meeting.
So what's the timeline on a withdrawal?
Well, there is no timeline on the
But they'd
withdrawal.
have to start the whole process.
They would
over
have to
again.
start back at
Correct.
planning and zoning.
Only if it's denied, right?
No?
No.
No,
They withdrew the application, so they would have to start all over.
they would have to start back with planning and zoning and then come here. Okay, so on things like this, we would vote on this at our next meeting, or is there some discussion amongst council members?
we need a motion to bring a denial ordinance, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll need to bring an ordinance next meeting to, actually, an ordinance to approve the special use permit, which will get voted down. So,
So why do we have it on 1919? How can we do both at
Well, do we know it's going to be voted down? We don't know.
No, we don't know that.
Okay, so this ends tonight's discussion on this matter, okay? So we're talking about Deer Run, and the one at Lakeview has been withdrawn. So that one is gone now, okay? And if they want to bring that back up, they have to go before city council again. Hold on, Leon.
Planning and zoning
They'll
and
have
city
to,
council.
okay, they have to go back to planning and zoning first, And then whatever happens at planning and zoning, then whether it's even denied, it will come then here for the Lakeview Drive. But right now, that's withdrawn. That's off the map.
Yes.
Yes?
Because it's withdrawn, does that mean that they can't apply for 6 months again?
No, that's a zoning. If a zoning is denied, then they have to, right?
Mark,
Mark?
if you pass it, or, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong.
Sorry, they know more, for sure.
Go ahead.
If they pass an ordinance, I think that's what Mark is double checking, and then if they pass an ordinance to deny it, then they couldn't come back for 6 months.
But if they withdraw it, then they...
But if they withdraw it, they could come back next month if they wanted to do that again.
That was my question.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so next week then, or at our next council meeting, which would be the first Monday of November, I don't know that date in front of me, November
Sorry.
6th. There will be an ordinance on the agenda for the council to vote
On Deer Run.
1209 Deer Run
on
Drive.
1209 Deer Run only, because the other one is gone. And that ordinance will be written as an approval.
Right.
And then the council will vote that night whether to deny or to approve that ordinance. So the vote will be taken at our next regular council meeting, November the 6th.
Just clarify, why is that being wrote as an approval?
That's the way it's always done.
Okay.
An ordinance submitted to approve the special use permit.
Gotcha.
And then if you're going to write an ordinance to deny it, there's no reason to present an ordinance.
Okay.
Mark, and one other clarification, if the, just because I think it's relevant, if they would, and if the Munziks chose to go ahead and withdraw their application between now and November the 6th,
Right.
they could do so, and we would not present an ordinance to you at that meeting. I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that.
They would be in the same position as the Lakeview Drive property.
Correct, so.
Okay, got it?
In other words, we don't know anything until you vote?
Right, the council will then vote, and on a special use permit like this,
On November
6th.
we don't vote on the same night as the hearing.
Unless the applicants withdraw their application, then we would not submit an ordinance. If they have to make an
They
application.
make the application.
We don't automatically start over. That's only if
We
they
don't
come
do
back
it.
and make an application with the city again.
I would think it would be highly unlikely that they would come back again, given the fact that it was denied or recommended denial at P and Z. I guess they can, but wouldn't seem to be a very efficient use of their time.
We'll find out the 6th.
So you can return that night
What?
to be here for the vote, but there will not be a hearing that night. So what you've said tonight is what you've said, and the council is taking all that under advisement. So that night, it'll be under the ordinances and resolutions. You can look at our agenda online to see that it's on there. The ordinance will be written to approve it, because that's how ordinances are written, and then the council will vote to approve or deny.
But you can certainly call City Hall to make sure, if you don't see it on there, to make sure that it's withdrawn.
Right.
If
you
you don't see it on there. That's fine.
Okay, and the agenda will come out like like Thursday before that 6th, so
If we come November the 6th, then we'll find out then also, right?
you'll find out what the vote is. Because they will vote that night. Okay, so there are a couple of questions.
Can
Can you
them
come up,
to the-
please, and,
Is there any way that we could do the ordinance tonight, just so that people don't have to come back?
You can't
No?
do it. You got a waiting period.
Yeah, that'd be great.
My name is Linda Vaughn. I live at 1209 Vaughn Drive. I had a question. Last week when the Planning and Zoning Committee got together, I wanted to find out if the house on 1209 Deer Run had been inspected.
did we look into that?
Do you have a,
I do not. I mean, if you call, I'll give you a number. You can call the official.
Okay, to find out if it was inspected? Because I don't know if that was legal, if it wasn't inspected, for them to keep operating.
understand?
Right, but we didn't know they were operating, I mean, at the time. I mean,
Until we got the letter.
Until we got the letter out.
Right,
so-
but I mean,
right.
since then, we know So I wanted to find out if it had been,
My guess is probably not, but we can verify that.
okay, I can check.
Because I think that
They have to
probably-
request to have it inspected, don't
They
they?
hadn't
It's not that we just go inspect it.
Yes.
If there was any kind of improvements done to the property that would have triggered the need.
And
for
that was one of the
building
questions in P and Z last week, is there was some improvements done that wasn't on the,
And I could not tell you just sitting here tonight if that property was or was not
Well, I
inspected,
think
but I
the
could if I looked in
concern
the file.
of Mr. Borgman, if I'm correct, if that was his name.
that was his concern, yeah.
Yeah, if it was,
The
you know,
windows.
and maybe at that point, it should have been stated that since it hasn't been inspected and those windows are in question, or the egress, maybe they should have taken a look at that. That was,
I think it should have, but since they're not here tonight, and I can only speculate, they haven't proceeded to take this any further. So I think that was one of the things that was asked in P and Z, if I remember right, wasn't it, Greg? So since that wasn't done, I'm assuming that I'm only assuming that this is at a halt.
okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Mike, you had something.
Yes, this is just for my clarification. I don't understand why you'd write an ordinance approving something when planning and zoning voted no, and majority of residents say no, why you'd write an ordinance to approve it that you could vote on yes or no.
It's just the way it's done. It doesn't make any sense to present an ordinance denying a special use permit. So the way we've historically done it is you send up an ordinance to approve the special use permit. Somebody introduces it, it gets read a second time, and it's voted on. And I'm just reading the tea leaves here, but my guess is it'll fail 8-0. But that's the way it's done to make the record complete of what was done with the application, the public hearing process, and that's the final step.
And typically, I will add on that they do not, typically they request to withdraw it, just like 112 did on your neighborhood.
It's a pretty good indication, the fact that they're not even here tonight, that they have given up on the idea of going forward with it.
Okay, thank you.
It's all in the words.
But if they do, if they withdraw, then we're all back in here in a month.
No, that's only if they make application again.
Right.
If they withdraw the application.
And is there going to be a fine for them running a business without a license for a year?
Well,
it's going to be hard to prove.
Now that she admitted it,
probably not.
if I don't pay my taxes, I get fines.
Probably not, because my guess is she didn't know she had to do that.
Yes, she knew.
Well, we're not.
We're not really.
We're not going down that.
The
we're not
point
going down
is
that
that
path.
I don't understand the whole legal part about, right, I'm with that guy there. I don't understand why you have to write an ordinance to agree and then deny. The planning and zoning voted that night, and we knew right away.
And the planning and zoning voted that night, but this council has the final say on it. If the planning and zoning had passed it, we could still deny it, or we could agree. The ordinance would still be there, that it would be written in a positive fashion, and then we vote yes or no. And then we can vote no and deny it. So that's just the process.
And just, and
Don't worry about it.
Just don't get hung up on the
Don't get
verbiage.
hung up on that.
Right. It's just the way the legal part of
That's
it
the
goes.
process of government.
Process. It's really not saying that we agree.
It makes it a little bit more clear, because if you have a negative something and then people are like, oh, wait, do I vote
Yes.
no or yes?
Do I
Or,
vote-
and
Yes
it
or
gets
no.
confusing. So if it's always in the affirmative, then you know what a yes means and you know what a no means, vote. Does that make more sense?
No.
It is
It's
a process.
the process,
All it
Nancy,
is.
it's the
I'm
process.
very straightforward.
It's not.
I have a high
I understand.
three-digit IQ, but it's just that I think I'm just, can't
It's-
figure out why it can't be voted on now.
It has to have so many days after the hearing.
Vote on it.
And it's not in the packet. It's not
It's
in the
not in the
packet.
packet. They didn't present they didn't push for the ordinance. to
Would
be
it make,
presented.
would it make more sense to you if this ordinance came up and the motion was motion to deny? That's probably what's going to happen. It's going to be motion to deny, not to pass, but to deny it.
That would make me feel really good.
Well, that's probably what's going to happen.
That's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah. I would start feeling better.
I hope so, because I want to go home and just be sick again and not have to go through this, because it's very taxing.
It is painful, trust us.
It's very, very, very taxing. But thank you so much.
You're
for your
welcome.
time. I do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you for all your hard work, Nancy, going and getting all these signatures. That's not easy task either. And I appreciate all you showing up here. That shows support.
Yeah,
And
Jerry
we're strong in numbers.
section, Gary took
Did
a
you want to say
section,
something?
And I got a section. And we all were diligent about it because we really want our, like I said, I don't know how many I haven't talked to, but I'm very ill, very ill. And this home means everything to me. I'm leaving it to my grandchildren.
Okay.
I don't want it next to a hotel.
Got it. All right. Thank
Sandy,
you, Nancy.
can I make a recommendation that we give them about 60 seconds to leave if they'd like to, since we have a long agenda?
Come forward.
Thank you.
My name
Hold
is
the
Bridget
microphone
Turner.
down.
My name is Bridget Turner. I live on Lexington Lane. If this is denied, passed, whatever, if it's denied, do I have to worry about my subdivision that is a single-family home, or will I go through this process also?
If someone else wants to come forward and have a special use permit in your neighborhood?
Yes, because I'm right.
It will go,
The
it's part of
same
the property,
process.
so you'll go through the same process.
Even though it's a single-family neighborhood also.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll have to in my neighborhood too.
Yep.
It's all the same.
Okay.
You having one?
I didn't know if it was a single.
What?
You having one in your neighborhood?
Good evening, Michael Livingood, 202 Lakeview Drive. Just to kind of piggyback off the last resident that was up here, I would prefer not to be up here if this was in my subdivision in the next 2 months. Again, is there any way we can have a work session to try to figure this out? This whole sharing economy is not going away. Over the next 5 years, 10 years, this is going to grow. You're going to have more and more applications come like this. You're going to see more and more people here. I think it would be to the best interest of the community to try to do some type of work session to try to find out what is the process for this. You know, are there citations being written if somebody's operating without a permit? If someone does want to do it, what are the rules? Are we going to have to do the special use permit every time? So that's just my question.
We discussed this at after our last planning and zoning. Sal, do you want to address that?
Yeah, so we are already forming a committee for, to put on a workshop like this on the sharing economy. That's not just Airbnb and VRBO, but that'd be Uber, Lyft, because those are companies that are allowed to run statewide now. So we've already got some people in mind to sit on that committee to not only educate the potential owners of these homes that want to run it, but also the surrounding neighbors. But to answer Mike's question, I mean, if you're outside of downtown, there will be a special use permit request every time. That's pretty much the only option available, because if someone comes in with a request, I mean, that's the process, is to ask for a special use permit, and it'll go to P&Z and it'll go to council. So that's pretty much the only process available, because you're not going to want it to be a rezoning. I'll tell you that, because then that opens it up to a handful of uses. At least a special use permit narrows it down to one specific use they're asking for.
Okay.
Sal, I suggest you get that guy's name because I think he'd be a good guy for the committee.
We don't have it formed yet, but we will, and it'll be a public hearing,
Okay. All right, so that closes that. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
Special use permit, 1919 East Fifth Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Sal?
You want to give them time to file out? It's kind of up to them. Okay.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, guys.
All right, so 1919 East 5th Street. I'm going to give a little bit of background on this one as well, because how we got here was a little bit more unique than just a normal request for a special use permit. So Carriage Care Auto auto care. It's a repair facility. They've been in there, I mean, the applicants here, you know, a number of months, and then they came into City Hall or gave us a call and said, you know, they're wanting to add an auto lift, you know, a vehicle lift. You know, I talked to the building inspector, John McCreary, and we determined that it was a piece of equipment and not a structure, and so therefore would not require a building permit. So technically it doesn't even need setbacks or anything, but we spoke to the owner and said, just make sure it's off of, you know, city right-of-way. Well, maybe we weren't clear enough that right-of-way doesn't end at back of curb. There is property on each side of the back of curb that is part of city right-of-way for road expansion, for sidewalk expansion, for all of that. So, and that being said, we kind of put to the side, told them, yep, you can put a lift in, but you know, that was that. Well, we got a call a couple months later, or a couple weeks later, and we went out there and realized that there was construction started for a lift that was on the side of the building, and this line isn't perfect. You'll see a survey here. It's a little bit better because the property line isn't actually that close to the building. There's some room there, but it was a couple feet over the property line into the right-of-way. And the lift wasn't in, but you could tell there was rebar going in and a foundation. So our building inspector went out there and realized, you know, if it's something big enough that it requires a foundation, it actually does need a building permit. Talked to the owner and went through the process. Well, in doing that process, and then talking to, you know, a neighbor, someone representing the neighboring property, we realized that even though this property historically has been used as an auto repair facility, for years it was grandfathered in and had never gotten a special use permit. Per city code, if you want to run an auto repair facility within 50 feet of a residential zone district, you have to have a special use permit. And so technically, since they were wanting to expand and add some storage to the rear and now put this lift in, which is big enough to require a building permit, it's considered an expansion, and they lose that grandfathered status. So they're here tonight to request a special use permit and to come into compliance for expanding this use. And the expansion really is further north away from 5th Street to the rear. So the biggest concern was how is that going to impact the residential properties to the rear. So that's just how the background, how we got here. The property is located at the corner of 5th and Alberta Lane. So this is just north of Shop Around the Corner. And yeah, this is a little bit zoomed out. So just to show the surrounding zoning, you can see pretty much everything on the north side of 5th Street there is C2, general commercial, and then one block up past that is all the residential. You can see in this area, this blue highlighted is the subject property. There's some two-family here for the duplex. The property directly to the rear is zoned single-family residential. However, it's used as a storage building. It's not used residentially, but the way the code reads, this doesn't matter how it's used, it's how it's zoned. So that is the property that it's closest to. And then everything to the south is actually M1 industrial zoning. We do have some industrial uses here to the west on 5th Street, but other than that, it's Shop Around the Corner, the old bowling alley, and then there's a church there. So that's just the surrounding zoning. We did have a site plan, a very vague site plan submitted. Our special use permit doesn't require you to hire a civil engineer or do any plans drawing up front. It does require just a general idea if you are going to be expanding your business of what's going to be built and where you're going with it. So what was shown here is there's the existing building. They're adding blacktop parking to the rear, concrete pad, and then you can see here it does say new lift station. And it was important here that we mentioned, since it is large enough to have a foundation and need a permit, it needed to be in line with the existing building to match that setback. It couldn't be any closer to Alberta Lane than what the existing building already is. And that's how for an existing setback on a property, that's how we determine setback is based on the existing building. And so given the surrounding uses, there are fairly intensive uses to the west, just to the south across the street. With that M1 zoning, there are commercial properties up and down 5th Street. It's fairly mixed, but in this area, you can tell if as you go east and west, there's a number of commercial uses. Staff really didn't feel that there was approving this was a detriment to the surrounding property. It does fit in with the area of that mixed use along 5th Street. Our concern was, as the expansion, to make sure that it doesn't detriment any properties to the north, to the rear of the property, as they are going to be expanding that way. So we had some conditions of approval, and then P&Z kind of amended it and added it, but added one. The first was that all vehicles to be repaired must be stored to the rear of the lot behind the site-proof fence along Alberta. So that'll be in this area here that he shows the blacktop parking, concrete parking. If someone comes and drops off, and he mentioned that this lift station is going to have the capacity to hold, you know, an RV or a bus. It may not be the most common use, but it does have the capacity. Well, if that's going to be there for a day, obviously these parking stalls are not striped for that type of vehicle. You know, it need to be stored to the rear behind a site-proof fence, so it's not in the clear view. Second is that site-proof fence must be installed within 30 days. That's just to make sure, since the building, the operation, the company is already operating there, to make sure there's a hard and fast line there, and that was what P&Z landed on. I understand they may have to take down that fence if they to put in their, get their asphalt and concrete in there. You know, I know that we're getting to a time of year maybe difficult to get the concrete done, but we wanted the fence up within 30 days because at least that's the most important screen. And then this is something that P&Z actually kind of adjusted a little bit. The site-proof fence must extend from the northeast corner of the existing building to the northeast corner of the subject property and west 10 feet along the northern property line. So that's here. It has to go from the corner of the existing building to this northeast corner and then back 10 feet. There is some landscaping here. It's not on the subject properties. It's not on the subject property. It's on the northern property. But the thought at planning and zoning was if they'll at least get the fence 10 feet back here, vehicles coming down Alberta Lane won't be able to see past that corner. It'll be screened at least like this all the way through. And then I'm sure they'll have some sort of gate here, but the gate will also have to be, you know,
buffer
screened.
zone there too?
Well, they show this area as not proposed to be used. There's a current concrete slab that goes over the property line. So I guess you can consider this a buffer, but they're not proposing any additional screening at this time. And P&Z did not recommend it, did not require it as well. I should phrase it that way. So staff is recommending approval of the expansion and approval of special use permit with those conditions. We agreed. I mean, I agree with adding, you know, the 10 feet along the northern property line. I think that'll help out with the screening for vehicles coming down, because there is that, the building to the north does screen the property, but again, that's not his building, and it is zoned residentially, so that building could be torn down and a house could be built there in the future. So at least gives us some screening along Alberta as well. There was a separate request, and there's no ordinance on it for tonight. There is an ordinance for this because this was approved unanimously at P&Z. But there's a separate request for a vacation of approximately 5 feet of the right-of-way there of Alberta, and that's this long, narrow rectangle here. And I believe the reason for that was that currently the asphalt and parking lot goes to the back of curb. And so the request was, well, the owner asked to vacate that portion of the right-of-way since they're to move their property line just to the back of curb. Staff does not recommend approval of that. We typically do not approve a vacation of a portion of right-of-way, especially when it's an existing road. Typically, only vacations we see are whenever a planned street that was never built. And the second reason for that is that there's the possibility for utility expansion as well as sidewalks. There's not sidewalks there right now. When you're using federal funding to overlay a street, and I know John can correct me if I'm wrong here, but if you're using federal funding to repair a street, you typically have to replace it with sidewalks.
Yeah, that would not be applicable for Alberta. However, we do have a sidewalk addition, program.
So with or without federal money, we just don't want to remove the possibility of adding a sidewalk there in the future, is basically my point. Go ahead. Yep.
I see Mark's in the audience here. Well, I spoke to you today, Mark. You explained to me this is.
Excuse me, Steve. Steve, you need to speak in the public microphone.
Pointy thing?
Yeah, so it's a little bit shaded here, and the reason for that was when they first got the survey, that was where the lift station was proposed. And we caught it and said, no, you're actually going over the property line. So that's what's shaded because that was the original location that they paid for the survey just to make sure where it was. And then this.
Where is this, Mark?
Yeah, I had to have a surveyor come out.
It's a public hearing. You need to come to the mic, please.
Okay, I'll try not to talk too loud this time. They recommended I had a surveyor come out and survey the property, a little extra expense, but that is up to date. So
Where it says new lift station, is that where you're going to put your steel columns for your lift?
that was where I had intended to, yes. And when I talked to Sal, I understood I did not need a permit for that, and there was just a misunderstanding. I thought I owned up to the curb, and apparently the city owns from the back of the curb, what, 6 foot in, or?
I think it's about
5.
It would vary. I mean, without a survey, we couldn't tell.
And it was crumbling blacktop anyway, and I thought, well, that's a good place to put a lift, put some concrete in there, get rid of that crumbling blacktop that the city owned, and replace it with something nice. The lift's going to be painted white. It's going to blend in with the building, and I'll put up a fence or whatever, you know, to shield it. We don't work on big trucks very often, but when I do, it's a real pain to crawl underneath those things. And I'm 63 years old. I'm not getting any younger. And it's real nice to stand up and work. And also it's a safety thing. If something bursts into flames, what are you going to do? You're going to crawl out of there? I'd rather walk out of there or jump out of there, you know. But we don't work on big trucks that often, but we do. And maybe one a month. We worked on a propane truck. This month we worked on the fire truck from across the street. They brought over. I fixed it. And it's an occasional thing. It's not every day. We're not going to have RVs parked up and down the street. We're not going to have trucks parked everywhere. I intend on using the back parking lot only for employee parking. I don't want to store cars back there. I want to use it for employee parking so I can use the front for the customers. That's my only intention. And I'm not going to get into tires. I'm not going to work on weekends. I'm done with weekends. I gave that up 20 years ago. But, and we try to be, you know, on the weekends we're quiet. I mean, and my neighbor, I have a 90-year-old lady across the street I communicate with. She is happy with what we're doing. She likes to watch us work, I think, and it gives her something to do. It's better than watching TV. And then there's a young couple living right across the street that I talk to all the time. They're just very nice people, and we wave, their kids wave at me, and it's kind of a family thing. Yeah.
I have a question, Mark. So it looks like the part of the conditions of the special use permit is that the vehicles to be repaired must be stored in the back of the building, not the employees. Is that correct?
No, that wasn't the intention of all this, really. That wasn't the...
Well, and I will say, I added that condition of approval thinking that if there's body work, if there's some type of derelict vehicle that needs to be fixed to be able to be driven off.
We don't do that.
That's standard, yeah, that's
Okay.
a standard condition that we add for auto repair to cover that just in case there's derelict vehicles. And he's saying his business, they don't do any body work, so maybe they're not gonna be any vehicles that, you know, there's no crashes or wrecked vehicles.
No.
But that's a standard condition we add for auto repair, just in case there are wrecked vehicles, you know, anything that's unsightly to put in the back. And I think my hope was to cover that, because when he mentioned at the P&Z that it has the capacity for a bus or an RV, that way that vehicle could be stored in the rear if it needed to be, because if it's going to be there for a day, it would be taking up, you know, it'd be difficult, I think, to park.
Well, there is nobody there during the week. The church right across the street, that is always clear. I mean, right there across the street, we can park. In fact, that's where they put the fire truck. You know, just brought it up there, and there's nobody there during the week. And on the weekends, we're closed.
So, I mean, if Mark can correct me, but I don't know if we need to amend that condition, but I will say that's a standard condition we do for auto repair. If that's going to be an issue with, if someone's going to go there get their oil change or something, and technically it's a vehicle that's being worked on and it needs to be in the rear, I understand how that can be a little,
That would be
you know,
bad.
you know,
Because we like
unnecessary.
to get cars in and out the same day. Yeah.
Yeah, you have that as condition number 3 in your ordinance, your proposed ordinance. So that would need to be amended or taken out of there, whatever.
Okay. Well, that's up to you guys. That was just a standard condition, so.
And we may not need the parking, but it's just, I'd like to be able to, you know, if I can't put the lift station alongside the building, I'd like to put it behind the building so I can at least use that property for something, rather than growing weeds and rocks. You know, so anyway, and to my expansion, you know, expanding my business is important to me. I pay my employees 100% of their health care, and I even bought one of my employees a set of teeth, you know, so I need to expand my business. Any other?
We talked about site-proof fence. What constitutes site-proof fence?
Our code doesn't specify, and so that's something that we've done in the past. with ordinances and specified material, and that's something we have not done. So, I mean, I will remind you that at the corner of East 5th Street and Old 100.
Blue tarp is a little bit unsightly.
Right. That was not specified.
What color tarp were you planning on putting up?
Gray. White to match the building, actually. But,
Are you talking like a white vinyl fence or something?
I was thinking a white vinyl fence. You know, my budget's kind of shot because of all the money I spent throwing it.
Surveys?
But,
Oh, should we put in there that we would like it to be a white vinyl fence? Should we include that in the conditions?
What other type of fencing material would be appropriate? Because chain link and blue tarp.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Well, I mean,
We laughed about that.
Well, and I understand that, and I appreciate that, Mark, but we also have to put that in there, so
Right.
we're covered in the fact that.
Well, these permits, as we were talking about the previous hearings, they're special use permits. They can be transferable. So you may be dealing with Mark today, but if Mark sells his business, somebody else wants to, if you don't specify what you want with regards to that within that ordinance, they're just subject to whatever that ordinance reads.
Right.
And I do have one more thing I just want to bring up, and it was mentioned in one of the letters that was attached by Mr. Schulte, who is here. After the fence got added at P&Z, there was a concern about, you know, a dumpster, if a trash receptacle being moved outside the fence. We do have separate requirements for that, so that they have to be screened.
Enclosed.
They have to be enclosed and screened, so I don't think you necessarily have to address it with this, but if a dumpster were to be put outside of the fenced area, then we do have the code to address that at that point. So
I'd rather keep it behind the building. So, anyway.
I'm just a little bit uneasy with this side plat.
Side triangle?
Well, the fact that there's no dimensions on anything.
Well,
I'm not sure what you mean there.
Well, new lift station, is that 100 by 100? Is it 50 by 50? Is it 20 by 20? Is it 60 by 80? What is it?
It's
How big is
about
it?
12 by 20 maybe, or
Well, that's what I'm uneasy about. How big is it?
I don't know. I haven't built it yet. I can go back and measure it,
That'd be great.
but I'm saying, well, it's a 12-foot door on the back of the building, so I'm saying it's going to be 12 foot wide, well, maybe 14 foot or something like that. And, you know, with the corner.
The next two squares, I'm not sure what they're supposed to be.
Well, the other one was supposed to be, there's a container there right up against the building for pipe storage and other things. And then behind that, if I can't put the 4-post lift to the side of the building, I'm going to put it behind that container, right up next to that container.
Well, see, that's where I'm kind of uneasy. Is it going to be where you show it, or where is it going to be where it's going to wind up?
It's going to be right there next to that container. The ramps are about 27 foot long, I believe. And there's 4 posts that go in the ground, well, on piers. So about 27 foot long. That's for the big lift. The other one's going to be a 2-post. The one coming off the door, I don't have a pointer, but on the right side there, the new lift station on the right side, yes. There's already an existing 12-foot door there. And so it's just going to go out, there's going to be some concrete slab go out about, I'd say less than 20 foot. Let's just say 20 foot to make it simple. But there's going to be a 2-post lift there. I have a lift that's too tall for the building, and sometimes I get trucks, big box trucks, that I can't lift inside the building.
Hey, I'm for you. What you've done to this site is better than what it was before.
Well, thank you.
But I just am a little uneasy with the plan, that's all.
Okay, well, that's fine. I can.
Do we need to have him come back with a better drawing?
I would feel a lot better about it.
I mean, is this we're gonna get into winter then, or?
No,
You've already bought the lift and everything's sitting there.
I've had them. I've had the lifts and everything.
You're going to put up the fence and shield it. Nobody's going to see it once it's there. As long as it passes building code, I don't care how big of a concrete pad you build or how long your lift is going to be.
Okay.
Because it's gonna be what you need to put those trucks in the air.
Yeah, I appreciate that, yeah, that's exactly right.
Everybody else okay with that? Okay. So what do we want to do about the fence?
I would just appreciate a good fence. I think that's what constitutes what keeps, right, the white vinyl
So
fence.
white vinyl is what you were anticipating?
That's what I'm planning on. I haven't got a price yet, but I expect one in any day.
Include that in the
But that's.
I think we have to.
That's what I want. I want a white, I want something nice. I mean, this is my
Mark,
property.
Mark, what was the height? Was it going to be an 8 foot or 6 foot?
6 foot, they said.
6 foot.
Yeah.
Just trying to.
Now, is it 6 foot from the ground, or is there, or how's this work? I don't understand fences.
Top of the fence, 6 foot.
So does it have to go all the way to the ground, or off the ground a little bit, or?
You don't want it to go. You can have it off the ground a little bit.
Yes.
Okay, I don't understand
That way
fences.
you can weed eat under it.
Yeah, okay, there you go. See, there's a man.
Yeah.
Questions?
No, I'm saying, you know.
Oh. Okay, anything else that can, questions?
So can we adjust that then, add that white vinyl fence into that?
And I'll have to put 2 gates in there. I have to have a gate by the building there to get, to access it. And I have to access my concrete slab up there. There's already a rock driveway up there, so if I could put a gate up there.
Or taking out vehicle storage in the back.
What's that?
Taking vehicle storage out of the back is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So amended by white vinyl and no, and.
Well, is that a condition, though, that we put there, the vehicle
There's a condition
storage?
in the ordinance
There's a condi-
that you need to take out, I think, if you want to take out number 1. Is that up there or not? Yeah, I'm sorry, that's number 3 under section 1. Number 2 is a 6-foot high proof fence shall be placed along the eastern boundary of the property from the northeast counter. You can,
Just amend that to vinyl? White.
you could say that, yes.
We have ours there too,
I'm sorry?
are the R's on there too?
Yeah.
Hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Friday.
That's in there as well.
It's on the ordinance.
So you could take out, if it's at the council's, if this is what you want, you could take out item 3, and then you could go ahead and then just add the verbiage with regards to white vinyl fence for item number 2. But this is still a public hearing. You still have more testimony that people may give, so we may be a little ahead of ourselves, but if that's what you're
Yeah.
thinking, we can do that.
Okay, well, if it's,
Okay,
that it?
that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your time. My name's Mark Schulte, and I'm an attorney, and I'm representing Robert and Marita Garbs, who are here, and they would each like to offer something first, and then if it's okay, I'd like to come behind them and offer some more thoughts. Is that okay?
Sure. Mhm, it's a public hearing.
Hello, I'm Marita Garbs.
Pull the microphone down a little bit.
Okay, we feel that Mr. Mark needs to come back and have a better plan of what he's doing. When he first moved in there was so much material that came in on that empty lot that I thought he was going to have a junkyard. Then he started doing excavating on the east side of the building, and we found out he was going to put a lift in there. Well, that is city property. And there has been a posting in the paper every week that if you put a garage sale sign on city property, it is illegal. And so what I'm asking now is, how can he use that part of the yard to put his lift on? And now he's bringing in these big storage containers that he's got in the back of the building. I am just against this. I want him to succeed in business, but I do want him to keep the neighborhood nice. Thank you
Did we
very
move
much.
it okay, thank you. Didn't we move it off of the city property? I mean,
Yes, it's not on the city
It's not on the city property anymore. It's been moved to
It's
the
been
back.
moved behind to.
Yeah,
the back.
yeah, but it was going on the city
Right.
property.
It was at first, but we.
Was on
moved-
right-of-way.
It was
On the right-of-way,
right-of-way.
yes.
But
Thank you, Mr.
we've-
Lamb.
We've moved that.
Yeah, they moved that. But I mean, like Mr. Scarnio said, the drawing, you don't know if it's going to be 2 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet. And with the cars parked in front of the building, when you come down Alberta Lane, if they're over the right-of-way, you cannot see the cars that are going east on Fifth Street.
There's a site.
So I guess that's all I have to say.
Excuse me, ma'am. I have a question for you. You know the business that was in there before?
Pardon?
The business that was in there previous?
Yes, sir.
There was a lot of derelict vehicles on that parking lot. A lot of junk, a lot of
Behind
bad
the
business
building,
going there.
Behind the building
Right.
on Alberta.
I don't recall seeing you guys here when that business, and Mark's business is a lot
Yes, yes, we were.
cleaner than what.
You were, yeah, we were here.
Okay. I don't
Yeah, we
recall
had
you.
problems
But,
since day one.
Okay, I'm just.
May
gonna
I
question-
make a comment
Yes,
about
ma'am.
that?
Mhm.
Okay, when they asked permission to put that metal pole barn there, they were going to put it right up to the street. And when we built our home, they said that we were setting the precedent of 40 feet back from the city property, and anything along Alberta Lane would have to be 40 feet back. Well, what the previous owner did, they got permission to push the building back, and the building is right on the property line to the back. They didn't make him make the building smaller, they just left him push the building back.
Okay.
And we were, yeah, we did. They, you know, it's right on the property line. And when he puts this fence up now, how far is he going to be from the street with the fence? Do we know that?
Be on the property line.
You can have a fence up to the property line.
You can have a fence up to the property line? Okay.
It depends on, as long as it depends on the site distance triangle. We would have to go ahead and take a look, as long as it's not in violation of that.
It couldn't be up here. Right. That side triangle.
No, yeah.
But back there.
It has to be, it can be on the property line, but it has to be to the rear. Right.
Okay. Okay.
The city does not have a permit to
Pardon?
construct, the city does not have a permit to issue to construct a fence.
I'm confused.
So as long as it's located on your property line, the possibility is there that it could be located on utility easements. However, that would be at your risk to place it over top of that easement. So for example, if we had a water line over top of that property, that water line would need to be repaired. We would not be liable to fix that fence in order to make that repair.
Okay.
I don't know that situation here. I'm just letting you know that there is
Well,
a permit to issue.
I know you guys do, and ladies, you do a good job.
Well, I just had one other question for both of you. If Mark, by chance, did his 5-foot setback from the curb on Fifth Street and painted a line and didn't have any cars go any further than, would that help as far as the site? As far as if you come down Alberta.
When you come down Alberta Lane,
And if he marked back 5 foot off of from the gutter for the easement for the site, would that help with site?
well,
Would that help with that?
On Fifth Street, it would.
a couple days this week, the cars were back, and you could see when you went around the curve. But sometimes the cars are parked over the line, and then it's hard to see.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
And we have those gas trucks coming up there twice a day, and the school bus coming up the street, and so we have to be careful with it.
If they will look at the beauty shop, at the front part of that parking lot, where they got the stoppers, if they bring them right up to the stopper, that's perfect. No, they don't have no stoppers on this side, on Alberta side.
Okay.
But if makes a big difference when they pull it up to the space that they're supposed to leave, as to bringing the front bumper up to the gutter.
Okay.
So anybody walking down the street has to walk in the street.
In the street then.
So I just want to clarify, so I know that there's been a lot of discussion about the cars parked in front, which I think I understand that part. But regarding what we're going to be voting on this evening, the only thing that you are concerned about regarding that part, now that the lift is moved onto his property, would be you're concerned about the size of the lift? Is that correct? Is that the only part that you're still concerned about?
Well, no, there's other aspects of this. I'd like to get, like the gentleman said, there's a lot of figures going on here. I was wondering if we could not get some of this on paper with the figures.
The dimensions.
The dimensions. and
Better
stuff.
drawing.
But with the fence there, where, you know,
Yeah.
the vinyl fence that you're not going to be able to see what's over there, does it really matter what size his lift is and what exactly dimensions are if it's going to be
Anything
hidden?
about a lift.
Yeah, if I could answer
Sure.
that.
Yeah, do that.
What I understand is you're attending to the idea of a 6-foot fence being screening. But then keep in mind, the lift that Mark's talking about is 10 or 12 feet in the air. And if there's an RV or a fire truck or something on it, the fence is not really going to block that. I mean, Mark's obviously a successful businessman. He now bought a building. I think he bought it without knowing where the boundaries were or what its uses could be. And now in order to thrive, and we do want him to thrive, he needs to expand. And by his expanding, he's now going to be putting a lift, and I wasn't sure if there was 2 lifts, because you said two new lifts in back. Well, now we're talking about 2 lifts in back. That's news to me. I just learned that today. I also learned that the parking is not going to be in front, it's going to be in back. I just don't think this has really been thought all the way through enough for you guys to intelligently make a decision on it. So it's not just a fence. And by the way, if I may, and I don't mean to be, I have a couple questions here. I understand that the last planning and zoning hearing was about the Airbnb, and then they're having their vote on that one next week, but we had a hearing at P&Z the same night, and it's coming, you know, right on the heels of it. I don't understand why there's this rush. He started to pour concrete sometime in the summer, and then months go by before we had the application. The application, from my point of view, is deficient, and I don't really think it should be passed on. It's so incomplete. There are blank space, and these questions here, these numbered questions, relate specifically to the ordinance and all the different tests and prongs that you guys have to analyze it with. Number 7, whether the general appearance of the neighborhood will be adversely affected by the location of the proposed use on the parcel is blank. Others say none, not applicable, no change, noise level minimal. I don't really think that this gives me, who's trying to understand it, or you guys who are trying to vote on it, enough information to decide if him expanding his business is going to detract from the general character of the neighborhood. I would argue that it is. Now, I don't want to take money out of his pocket. I want him to succeed. But if he's going to put 2 new lifts behind this building where there's never been lifts before, there's going to be, you know, air hammers and such. It's going to be noisy. There are now 3 storage containers back there. On his drawing, there seemed to be 1. And the implication that they weren't complaining before, that's actually, sir, that's not accurate. And they're not really complaining about the fact that he cleaned the place up, because it was after I talked to Sal and asked Sal, why are they building it on the side of the building and why are all these cars parked on no gravel, that it all got cleaned up. Now, I've moved a couple times in my life, and I know it's a mess to move, and it takes a while to dig out from under all of that kind of stuff. So we weren't complaining at first, and really aren't complaining now. These people are trying to protect not just their home, but also their neighborhood. you know, and sometimes when you got the, the commercial and residential grinding up against each other, it's not always easy. Mark's a businessman. It's his job to grow in business. Now, my preference would not be that you vote it, well, I don't want to be harsh and say I want you to vote it down. I think you just don't have enough information to grant him. If you think making it a white vinyl fence is sufficient without asking him to be specific about all the other 9 points on that prong, I think it's really a bad move. I think it would be wrong. And, you know, we're the only ones here kind of squawking right now, but we do represent the interests of the community. I would think the smart thing would be for you guys to table it and let Mark go back and get real specific about where he wants his lifts and how many, because this is the first time I've heard it was 2. Whether he's going to park in front or in rear. Your site plans call for people to stripe and lay this stuff out. This is not just, oh, I'm going to grow my business a little bit. This is a long-term plan to multiply his business, and that might not be good for the 2 houses across the street or their house or the house up the street. And then also the idea that maybe we could put screens around the dumpsters and such. If he's going to do that and put that on the public right-of-way, I just think, again, he doesn't know where his boundaries are, and he just wants a little more. You can't even put a yard sale sign on a public right-of-way. And this is the entrance up Alberta Lane. That's the entrance to a very nice residential neighborhood up there. I don't think having his trash can being the first thing you see. We went and bought a landscape plan from Hillerman Nursery for his benefit, gave it to him, and invited him to call them out, and he could tell them how he wanted to landscape it. There was no landscaping proposed in here. You know, when sir, you said that the fence permit doesn't have standards, or, you know, I'm sorry, exactly how you said it. That may be true, but you guys can impose standards. You know? I mean, this isn't just a guy asking for a fence permit. You guys are going to let him expand his use of this property, and you can set restrictions on it. And if you don't, the next guy, who might not be such a nice guy, might want to take it further and further along. So, also, he said he maybe does big vehicles, 1 vehicle a month or so. That would be an appropriate thing to put into restriction, you know? I'm a little confused that now I'm hearing about 2 lifts. I really think that this application is deficient, and it's really inappropriate for you guys to you can deny it tonight, but I don't think you could approve it and have it stand. So I thank you for your time. Sorry for my rushed speech. And
That's okay. That's okay. Marita, did you have anything else?
You know, I was just wondering, you know, like, if he should sell his business, can somebody else come in and make changes again, and then we got to go through this all again? We've been going through it since 1990-something. First with the business before them, and so I just hope that you will take into consideration our point of view. We do not want to be the bad guy. We want him to have a good business, but we want him to have to go according to the laws of the city like we would do if we were doing something.
One last thing, Uncle Bob corrected me. There was some discussion about a 10-foot return of this fence along the north edge. That doesn't really block the views from the north. We would ask that it would go west, you know, so that it would completely block the views from the north. But again,
Go ahead.
But again, I think that focusing on us trying to decide what it should be without him first proposing something specific is backwards. And it puts us in the position of having to figure out all the things he may or may not do, instead of him asking specifically for what he wants to do, and then you guys can vote on it after comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, all of you.
Yeah.
Okay, if we can get down to brass tacks, I'll go ahead and lay out exactly what I'm gonna do. We're gonna go 14 foot, there's a door off to the right-hand side of the building there, on the back side of the building, right there, says new lift station. That's gonna be 14 foot wide, 20 foot long. And I'm gonna have 2 posts sticking out of the ground on piers that stick up about 6 foot. That's lift station 1. And you wanna write those dimensions down, or are we okay?
Would you do that? Write them down.
Well, I can, but I can't, a magic marker will work up there.
You're not going to do that.
No.
Just kidding.
You're not.
The second one will be the length of the container. There's a 20-foot container there. It'll be approximately 20 foot long, the pad. There's going to be 4 piers there that are about 6 foot, I think they're about 5 foot tall. There's going to be 4 of those. They're going to be painted white. They're going to match the container. They're going to match the white building. Same with the 2 posts. The white is going to match the white. We're going to put different colored vehicles on there, but it's all going to be white, and it's going to look pretty. If I have to plant flowers on them, I will, but. And I'm not sure about the blacktop parking lot back there yet. I don't know about that yet, because I haven't decided what to do back there. I don't know what I can afford at this point. Depends on what this fence costs me. If you go back and look at the pictures, or look at the trees now, those trees are a lot bigger than that picture. Those trees are pretty doggone bushy, and a 10-foot back is going to well cover that site. I mean, if you want to, you're going to have to get a ladder to see around that. You will. And as far as the front parking here, I looked the other day, we're at least 12 foot back. Anybody go down to Jefferson Products down there and try to get around that corner? Down, oh heck. I'm just, Elm Street. Anyway, we're 12 foot back. Your car would have to be extremely long for you not to be able to look around that corner to take a right. And they haven't made cars like that since the 70s. But I'm just breathless right now. I'm just going to leave it like that. If you want me to write the dimensions down, I will write them down right now. If that's the big problem. If that's a big hang-up, I'll write it down right now. Anybody have any questions?
Council members, do you have any questions or comments or requests?
I do have one more thing. If John pulled it up, was pulling up on his phone. We do have site distance requirements for any property in town that's on a corner lot. And so if there's something that, with or without the special use permit, if we realize that there's an issue there, that can be brought up and addressed in-house, that we can, it's 30 feet back from the corner each way, and then you connect those lines, and that's the site triangle. And that's just standard code for any corner lot on a public street. You know, it's shorter if it's a driveway, but when it's on 2 streets, it's 30 feet. And so if there's an issue, we can always go look at that. We can have someone go out and look at it, and that can
And that,
be
you're
addressed.
saying that doesn't need to be a condition of?
No, that is
vote?
that's a code for any corner lot in town. So I know there's definitely site distance issues in town, but if it's something that can be, if it's a vehicle or if it's plantings or a sign, we do have a site triangle code where we can say, look, this needs to be removed or something to fix that. So.
Okay.
Do we have a paper version of your plan
Yes, we
here
do.
tonight?
Yep.
Well, I think it's upstairs, but yes, I don't have, sorry.
Well, it's what's scanned.
It's what's
It looks-
scaled,
It's the same
right.
thing. It's what's on the wall.
Okay.
I mean,
I don't have the.
So it would be possible to write it down?
I can write it right now.
Would that be
With a
possible?
big black magic marker. I just happen to have one in my back pocket.
do you have a
That'll
copy?
make everybody happy, I'll do it.
Go get it.
No, just,
No?
he has said what he's doing, I think.
It's in the record.
You know, the whole purpose of putting his fence up is to hide everything, okay? So what's the big deal if I'm 1 foot over on a pad in the back? Who's gonna see it? Unless you got your quadricopter out of your little drone or something, what's the big deal? How is that gonna affect the, and my containers, I painted them white. I could paint it, tat it all up like the shop around the corner across the street. That's a lot more visible than mine.
So,
I'm done. If you want me to draw the dimensions on there, I'll draw the dimensions on there, and I'll do it right now. Thank you.
thank you. Council, any questions? Anything else? Did you have anything else?
Well, if you're inviting me, I'll just.
Well, do you have anything? I'm not inviting you, just come up.
I applaud the staff's efforts to support small businesses. I feel in some ways that it has become their mission to expand this small business. I think that's inappropriate. It is out of character with this neighborhood, and it's not just a fence that's going to stop the air hammers. So I would implore you, if you're going to see this go forward, that you put more restrictions on it. He says he does one a month, or was it one a month?
Well, it could be more.
Could be more. Could it be 6 a month?
All right.
30 a month?
Okay, address the council and.
So I believe it would be a mistake waiting to happen to just let that document serve as the guidelines for your future enforcement. I don't know if the enforcement folks would know when he's playing it straight and when he's expanding a little bit more.
Okay.
Any questions for me? Thank you for your time.
Okay, so at this point, we need to,
Just need to accept that into the minutes.
right, it was a public hearing, so we need to accept this into the minutes.
I make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Brinker, to accept this public hearing into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, by your vote, you've accepted the hearing into the minutes.
An ordinance granting a special use permit to expand an auto repair facility at 1919 East 5th Street in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Anybody introducing that?
Brinker.
Introduced by Councilman Brinker. Do we know for sure what we've added to this?
Right now, the only thing that, it depends on how the council wants to. The only thing I have in my notes is that you wanted to remove item number 3 under section 1. Is that correct?
And change and add the vinyl fence to section.
And then, right.
2.
White vinyl fence. So it would read, a 6-foot site-proof white vinyl fence shall be placed along the eastern boundary of the property from the northeast corner, continuing whatever the rest of the verbiage.
It also includes hours of operation.
Yes, that's number 1, and that would stay.
Okay. Is there anything else? All right. We have it introduced.
Okay, with the
Yeah,
amendments?
and have that done.
An ordinance granting a special use permit to expand an auto repair facility at 1919 East 5th Street in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke?
Yes.
Waterman?
Yes.
Scornia?
No.
Moheski?
Abstain.
Sullentrup?
Abstain.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Brinker?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. By your vote, you've passed the ordinance. Thank you.
Development Plan, 802 Rainbow Drive.
All right, so this is, if you remember, this is 802 Rainbow Drive, Jeff Wilson's property. It was rezoned to C4 planned commercial almost 2.5 years now. When it was first approved, they requested, if you remember, plan districts, if there's not a development plan approved within 2 years, they expire. And so prior to that 2-year expiration date, the applicant, Mr. Wilson, did submit a request to expand that zoning another 2 years in May, and that was approved. And in July, they actually asked for a boundary adjustment, and I apologize, I don't know why this line is still here. The county must have forgotten to amend this, but this has been approved. Remember in July, we looked at this, and this is out now, one lot, zone C4, planned commercial. So here is the development plan. I'm going to show two. This one's a little bit more crowded, but I wanted to show this one because it does show the topography, because it's a little confusing if you just look at the renderings of the building without knowing how the site lays. So they are proposing to keep the main entrance off of Rainbow Drive for the residence that was recently torn down. You can see they obviously widen it to meet, so it'll meet fire code for commercial standards. When we first reviewed this, well, we haven't seen this development plan. When we reviewed the Duncan development plan that was approved, you remember there was a joint access to the south here, and there was, you know, a shared access on Duncan. Our goal was we wanted to, since Duncan Avenue does have a high traffic count, we wanted to eliminate the amount of curb cuts and try to avoid having two. With that being said, since we don't have crystal ball of when the Duncan property will develop, and we can't force one property owner to give an easement to another, that was just a recommendation we had. If they're going to develop at the same time, that's great, but it hasn't timed out that way. So what they came in was, instead of having a new curb cut on Duncan, they're adding one on Rainbow Drive. Rainbow is primarily, or it only have residential uses on there, but reviewing this, we think it is an adequate entrance. It doesn't have sight distance issues as long as this entrance, as long as this corner stays open, which I'll touch on. And I do think that allowing this low-impact office use building to have an access on Rainbow Drive shouldn't detriment the surrounding property. And then just showing how this, you can see these lines here. This is the topo lines. It does increase, the topography increases as you wrap around. I apologize. And so there's a two-story building up front, and then it's a single-story building in the back. So it is built into the hillside. A little bit cleaner here. You can see the parking lot. They show 22 spaces based on the 4,000 square foot they're planning to build. They only need 18. So they're above what the minimum requirement is. They do show the fire lane coming in to this point, this 26 foot wide. This would not meet a fire lane radius requirement, but if the fire truck were to pull in here, they have the distance to pull a hose around the building 150 feet. So they don't have to have fire access 360 degrees. There is not a buffer yard between the residential, I'm sorry, I don't have a zoning map, but this property to the west is zoned residentially. They are not proposing a buffer yard, but as part of this development plan, they are proposing a 6 foot high vinyl fence, site-proof fence, along the property that is zoned residentially. So staff believes that that is adequate screening for this use. There's a parking lot here, but the way the parking lot lays, we shouldn't have, headlights shining right into the neighboring property. So we think it is adequate screening. The only other thing, here's some renderings. So this is looking at the front side where it'll face Duncan, the east side, and this is in the back where it's built into the hillside there. So you can see that there. P&Z did accept staff's recommendation. They voted on the 9th to approve it, an 8-0 vote. We did add some standard conditions of approval that we have for a development plan, but I wanted to specify here that it has to meet all stormwater requirements of city code. They are not specifying where it'll be at this time. They have room if they need to do it on site. If they opt to pay into the stormwater fund, that'll be something that's approved by city engineer. But I just want to point out that if for some reason they decide they need a larger on-site detention basin and it does amend the plan, they'll have to come back at that time. But if they can fit it without removing parking and without changing the layout of the site, then as long as it meets requirements, we're all good there. Second is that it must meet all fire hydrant location requirements. They don't show all the surrounding fire hydrants. There's so many that need to be within 1,000 feet. We don't necessarily need that on this development plan, but when they get a building permit, their civil plans will have to show that. Third is something a little more specific to the site. It's no signage and landscaping will be permitted in the site triangle of Rainbow Drive and Duncan Avenue intersection. And I want to be a little bit more specific here just because of the fact that it's not just this intersection site triangle. With this driveway being here, there's it's not really a site triangle. It's kind of a site rectangle. So we just want to make sure there's no signage or landscaping there to hinder people taking a left and pulling back on the Duncan Avenue. And I do believe they show up a monument sign, further down Duncan Avenue. So there's really no issue there. And lastly, it's standard for any developed plan in a plan district. It has to be developed in accordance with the plan submitted within 2 years of, if it's approved tonight, of this date. So, and that's all the conditions of approval I have, unless you have any questions of me.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, it's a public hearing, so Jeff?
Hi, I'm Mark Harriman with Bishop Frankenberg and Associates, representing Jeff Wilson. And just to be real brief here tonight, we did go through the 4 conditions, and we are good with those. And we'll work those out with the city engineer and Sal, and we don't think that'll be a problem. The rendering we're handing out, that is the front and the front only. And Jeff had it kind of in a little different setting, but the color is, and essentially the color and the look is the elevation you're looking at, and that's what we're going with, full brick and stone wrapped around all sides, so the back would look essentially like the front that you're having your hands, except 1 story, obviously. We went through this several times in front of you to get approval of the boundary adjustment plat. We did go in front of the Board of Adjustments to get the zoning corrected. So this is a long time coming. Our time frame would to be essentially button up our plans and submit for a building permit as soon as we can, and keep moving on the project. Jeff right now is looking at tenants in the lower level would be some professional services he is marketing to, and his intent is to have his hour of operation around, well, essentially 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, business hours. With all of that, I'll just entertain any questions that anybody may have.
Any questions?
Is the lighting plan to keep most of the light on parking lots and not overflow in the neighborhood?
That is correct, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And we will be submitting that with our development plan, construction documents to building department.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Can I interject something?
Sure.
Jeff Wilson, on the development, there's been a lot of talk about white vinyl fences here tonight. I don't plan on putting a vinyl fence on the back there. I own the home that's directly behind it. I was thinking more along the lines of like one of those black iron fences that's up along Fifth Street, where Fifth Street School used to be. But I don't want to sign off on a blocking vinyl fence.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that different than
Well, I guess I thought the plan.
The plan says.
what was?
So I just, if we can get an edited
Did it?
plan.
All right.
Just as long as the plan, as long as the plan attached to the ordinance doesn't say vinyl, if we can get an edited plan, if that's what council agrees to, I think we just need a note. Strike that on a new plan, so.
There you go.
Was there a,
I'd like to change that.
okay,
Do we have to do that? Would we have to have another vote if I change that?
Not if the city council.
well, didn't,
I like the black ones that are really
Amend the
nice.
ordinance.
didn't we talk about the site, though?
Not on this one. It was on,
That plan and zoning was all contained on that property
Right.
because of the elevation.
Right. I mean, and the only reason we brought that up is because asked Mark to make sure he shows that site-proof fence is because the code does require screening between residential and commercial zoning. So that's the minimum. But that's for unplanned districts to unplanned districts. If it's in this C4, it's per approved plan. So if you vote to
If you approve something other than, yeah.
right,
you
you
can
don't
go ahead and approve.
You don't have to follow that buffer code because it's a planned district. So.
Okay.
you own all the property behind there?
Yes. Other than what the Duncans owned.
I'm directly behind it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, all the way.
Here's the
That
line.
house.
This is.
Okay.
I just think it looks nicer.
A little more open.
Yeah. This has been a long time coming. I want to see it.
There you go. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would want to address the council on this item? John?
Go back to the picture where the, yeah, that one. Just so I'm clear on this, the, John Hillerman.
Need a pointer?
Bye.
You want this?
I had trouble using it last
Red
time.
button. Well, we got a new one.
He's hitting the slide,
Hit the
skipping
red
the
button.
slide. Hit the red one, John.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, this fence right here, that, you were talking about a fence, just so I'm clear on this, you guys know that's not a vinyl fence. That's a black powder-coated fence. That's not the fence that Jeff is talking about though, correct?
I don't think you're pointing at the right, there's no fence there, right?
Okay, yeah, I know that. This is back along my property line, right, Jeff? Or,
No,
okay.
you're way further here.
Okay.
Go back to the aerial.
I'll show you.
Okay.
Here's your property, right?
Right.
Yeah, so this is where we're the location of the
okay.
fence.
Okay.
Actually, I guess it's,
Sorry
no,
about
yeah, it's
that.
right here. So,
Because on that drawing, I was saying, there was the fence comes along our property line, runs to the south, and then turns back towards the church.
yeah, that's down here. Yep.
That's, okay. I didn't realize you were talking about that. I personally would agree with Jeff and think that the black fences looks better.
Thank you, neighbor.
All right, we have agreement.
I mean, what? We as a group.
John Hillerman?
Good job, John.
Wow. Took all this time.
Well, we argued about the fence for
On the Duncan
on the Duncan
property.
line as being a black coated powder.
Right, mhm.
Powder coated fence,
Yeah.
and that's close to what you're talking about, I'm thinking. The only thing, and I know this is, you're not gonna let me talk about this, but, there's a lot of things on the property. I have no idea what's going on with that property, and I don't think anyone does, especially with all the other things that are going on.
But tonight, we're talking about Jeff's
I know
property. So,
Jeff's property is separate, but I just wonder how long it's gonna be before we can move forward with cleaning up some of our stuff and making it look better. Jeff's property probably will make it look better.
that'll be our first step.
Probably the last one, too.
Right.
The way it's going.
Thank you, John.
It was going so good.
I didn't mean to speak for our whole neighborhood, it's just a personal opinion.
Personal
about the
thing.
fence
Sure,
to me.
that's fine.
I think a white fence would look stupid.
This is a big night. We have an agreement here on something tonight, so, okay.
A lot of fence talk.
Don't put it.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
Don't want anybody thinking you're going soft.
Okay, so we'll need a motion to accept this.
I'll make a
into the
motion.
minutes. Okay, we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Brinker, to accept this public hearing into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
An ordinance approving the development plan for 802 Rainbow Drive in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer. This is the ordinance that follows the previous item.
Yeah, the only thing that would change then is the, section 1, number 4, references the attached site plan. That would change to reflect the taking off the white vinyl.
Okay. Ready?
An ordinance approving the development plan for 802 Rainbow Drive in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke?
Yes.
Waterman?
Yes.
Skornia?
Yes.
Moheski?
Aye.
Selenchuk?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Brinker?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Public comments?
Is there anyone here who would like to address the council on any item that's not on the agenda? You don't want to do that, do you, John?
Report of department heads. Police Department Life Saving Award.
You have been so patient back there.
Yeah. Who's patrolling the street?
Oh, we have other guys. We have other guys.
Got it, girl.
The last council meeting, we recognized 4 officers for life-saving. Officer Garrett was one of them, but he was in DARE training, so he wasn't able to be here. So I felt it important to bring him up to publicly award him with his award. This is not Officer Garrett's first life-saving award. This is his second.
Wow.
His first one was for an AED save back in 2014. So you can contribute him to saving the life of 2 different people. So this incident was on May 22nd, 2017. Officer Garrett and Officer Mike Grissom dispatched to the City of Washington Public Library for an unresponsive female located in the restroom. Upon arrival, you located a female victim in the first floor restroom in a stall. Victim was unconscious, slumped over in the stall. From IV drug use paraphernalia located in the stall, it was apparent to you, Officer Garrett, the victim had used heroin and was overdosing. You removed the victim from a stall, laid her on her back, and in checking, found her have a shallow pulse and breathing. You administered department-issued Narcan nasal spray to the victim. The victim's pulse improved, but she was still unresponsive and her breathing was shallow. You and Officer Grissom then worked together to fix an AED in case of cardiac distress and started administering rescue breathing. After several breaths, the victim's breathing started to improve. A short time later, Washington EMS arrived, took over treatment. Prior to being transported, the victim regained consciousness. The victim was transported to the hospital by EMS and made a full recovery. Quick reaction, training, and dedication to service directly resulted in saving a person's life and is worthy of resignation. Awarded by Chief Ed Menifee, Washington Police Department. So good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks to all of you for being here this evening. You've been very patient. So, thank you. Did you have something, John?
I do. I just want to make
Okay.
sure. I did send an email out to the council last week regarding the recycling compost subcommittee, which I believe Councilman Sullentrop is on, Councilman Maheski, and then I believe I opened it up because we do have Councilman Meyer, or former Councilman Meyer is not obviously on the council anymore. So I opened up first come, first serve, and Councilwoman Waterman was the first to respond. So we did have a scheduled meeting for Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. I only got one confirmation. I just wanted to make sure that that was still good time for everyone.
This Wednesday?
Yep.
Not for me, I'm out.
And if not, if you could just send me something back so we could just get a time nailed down. What this meeting is going to do is it's going to discuss in the budget, we do have recycling truck budgeted. The goal being that we would transition to a single stream recycling operation where the curb sorting operation that you see currently today would be eliminated. The goal would be is to reduce the number of man hours to potentially in half to get off the routes much quicker, and in turn roll out into potentially curbside cardboard pickup, things of that nature. That will be coming. I don't have a timetable for that, but that would be the ultimate goal here, is to get that out to the households. So that's what the subcommittee is going to do, is to identify if that can and can't be done. But I just wanted to make everyone aware that I'm trying to revive that to get some direction on how to move forward. So,
Any questions or comments?
Nope.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Ordinances and resolutions. An ordinance repealing sections 115.280, 115.650, and Chapter 155 of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer.
These are the sections of the code that we discussed with the council about eliminating the need for an ordinance to be passed to set the salaries of the Community and Economic Development Director, the Finance Manager, and the City Clerk.
Any questions or comments?
Good idea.
An ordinance repealing sections 115.280, 115.650, and Chapter 155 of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri. Patke?
Yes.
Waterman?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Moheski?
Aye.
Sullentrup?
No.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Brinker?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a contract agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Sullivan Publications, a division of General Code, for recodification of the Washington City Codes.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer. This is to upgrade our codes.
This is for, yes, for Sullivan Code to go through and see if there's any inconsistencies. We haven't done this. I don't think, Marion, was the last time.
1992.
So it's been a while, other than the zoning code that was overhauled last year. This would take a look at all of the other
And
portions
they
of the
said they would not include that in.
Right, because that was already taken
Right.
care of.
Any questions or comments?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a contract agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Sullivan Publications, a division of General Code, for recodification of the Washington City Codes. Patke?
Yes.
Waterman?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Moheski?
Aye.
Sullentrup?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Meyer?
Aye.
Brinker?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a contract agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Tyler Technologies for Executime software, hardware, and services.
Scornia.
Introduced by Councilman Scornia.
This is to go ahead and update, this would be an update to our Tyler software so that they can go ahead and include some additional features. It's my understanding, I think this would be primarily for our time clocks, et cetera. That's the main provision on it, correct?
Any questions or comments?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a contract agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Tyler Technologies for Executime software, hardware, and services. Patke?
Yes.
Waterman?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Moheski?
Aye.
Sullentrup? Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Brinker?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance amending Schedule 1 speed limits, Table 1A, speed limits generally of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer.
Okay, during last week's traffic committee meeting, we discussed the city limits signage on the east end of town. As you recall, approximately 2-3 months ago, we had a annexation process that happened to take in the commuter lot on South Point Road. In addition to that, there were city limits are on both sides of Highway 100 to approximately the Jim Craft property. I don't know if anyone knows that there's a little shed that kind of sits down there, and I will get to that. That did pass. But in doing so, we looked at getting the actual city limit sign. You can kind of see it up there in the upper right corner. However, the speed limit sign is also located on that sign. So by doing this, it kind of caused a different issue. We did bring it to traffic committee. One of the items was discussed was kind of the potential safety issue at South Point Road, East 5th, and 100. With the accident rates, I was not able to pull those up. I apologize, but there have been a number of accidents there over the past year. The thought process was that if we could step that traffic down going into the intersection much sooner, that it would make a little bit of sense that that speed limit sign would go with city limits. So that's the proposal. Using my artistic ability, I was able to Photoshop what that sign would look like and at the exact location that I'm proposing. So it just gives you a visual of how much further away that is.
Wow.
It is not, it's approximately half-mile away. So it's not all the way out to the end sports like some may have thought, but that we would physically take that sign and move it to this location. So that's what this proposal is. It would be both ways, eastbound and westbound. And once this is done, we have MoDOT teed up to do the work for us.
So then we would move the 55 sign heading east down to that point.
Correct. Yeah, I did not, I ran out of time photoshopping today, so.
Let me ask you something. Is there a need to move that 55 mile an hour? Because you're already past most of.
Potentially not. I mean, it would make sense that you'd have speed limits on both sides, but I don't know how that would help with enforcement potentially, Chief. I don't.
Well, when you're talking traffic step down, you're talking giving them time to decrease speed before they get to the intersection. When you decrease speed, you decrease the violence of collisions. So that's a big factor.
But I understand that, but I'm saying exiting
Eastbound.
town.
Exiting.
Eastbound.
You know, is there a reason that we have to step that down to 45 at that point? Because there's no other businesses right there.
It would step down when you leave town. Is that right?
Jeff, you're saying if you're going
Eastbound, westbound
going
traffic.
eastbound, you can start hitting 55 right after you go through the signal. That's what he's
Yeah,
requesting.
like it is. That's pretty much the way it is now, right?
There are no, I mean, that is, I think, restricted access through there.
But is
So
that a problem with two different lanes? One lane going east, you can,
That's an enforcement issue.
Yeah, I don't know.
I couldn't tell you. I do know that MoDOT does have restricted access through there, so that the odds of getting another access to 100 are basically slim to none. So there would be really no additional curb cuts per se between this location and the existing location. So I can't really speak to enforcement, but
Just wondering. Question it. It's.
I'm not aware of any place that has provided that where you have two
Is that
different.
a high traffic area that we patrol between that new sign and the old one?
It's a high traffic area, but we don't write many summons there.
But the traffic committee's feeling is, and chief's too, is that we put the sign back there that slows the traffic down before the intersection. We have maybe less crashes.
I understand that. I'm just saying exiting town from that intersection.
The only thing is you have no divider on that roadway. So you have 55 and 45. Of course, you didn't have a divider before, but
Right.
you're increasing the distance you have for that increased speed and more serious potential crashes.
Nobody has a good answer, Jeff.
I haven't seen any place where you could do that. A marker, are you familiar with?
maybe for consistency.
I think it's always for consistency.
Keep it both ways.
Yeah, I'm not saying, to me, it makes sense having it faster going out, but that doesn't necessarily.
Well, like I asked
True, you know.
John last week, it's a half mile.
Yeah.
You know, that you're going to be doing 45, and then you're going to go up to 55 when you get to the bottom of the hill, so.
You'd probably be doing 55 anyway.
No, I'm usually
The
55.
way you drive, maybe.
So you're saying we should wait for you right there?
You're going to wait for Sandy.
Right there.
Watch out for that Cadillac. It's down the road.
There you go, taking off.
No, just question.
So.
It's not that we have to change it. I just.
Okay, are we good with the way it is?
Yep.
Okay.
I live with it.
An ordinance amending Schedule 1 speed limits, Table 1A speed limits generally of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri. Patke?
Yes.
Waterman?
Yes.
Scornium?
Yes.
Moheski?
Aye.
Zollentrup? Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtzmeyer?
Aye.
Brinker?
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance approving a boundary adjustment for the Heidman Industrial Park Plat 3 in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Opener.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer.
This is Ziegler, one more. There you go.
I'm sorry. I'm not even
All good.
paying attention.
All right, this is a real simple boundary adjustment. The Ziegler sign property here off of Vossbrink, here's Vossbrink Drive, and here's Bluff Road. He is purchasing a very small sliver from this neighboring property to the northeast. And so they're moving that property line. Here's the old line that's dotted, and here's the new. And he's got the same easements he did before, so really pretty straightforward.
Any questions or comments?
Thank you.
An ordinance approving a boundary adjustment for the Heidman Industrial Park Plat 3 in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke?
Yes.
Waterman?
Yes.
Gornia?
Yes.
Moheski?
Aye.
Sullentrup?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Brinker?
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance accepting the minimum improvements in West Fifth Villas in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Introduced by Councilman Sullentrup.
Within your packet, there's a cover letter that just identifies the portion of city code where we, if there's public infrastructure, we have to formally take that over. With West Fifth Villas, there was 2 sanitary sewer manholes and a sewer main that was placed on the north side of the property to ensure that we didn't have any cross connections with sewer laterals. So the developer is requesting that we take that over for city maintenance. It has been inspected and approved by our office. In addition, they have to put up a 20% maintenance bond for a period of 2 years. And that number was calculated to be $2,560. That will be in place if there's any issues over the next 2 years with that sewer line. With assuming your approval tonight, we will move forward with getting that maintenance bond and contract signed.
Is that the West Village across from Helen's nursery entranceway? Is that the West Village?
What? It's across from Western West Elementary. The duplexes,
Oh, okay. Andy.
Windy Hills area.
All right, I'm in the wrong out of town.
Yep.
Okay.
Any questions or comments?
An ordinance accepting the minimum improvements in West Fifth Villas in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke?
Yes.
Waterman?
Yes.
Gornia?
Yes.
Moheski? Sullentrup? Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Brinker?
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Commission, committee, and board reports. An ordinance approving the final plat of the overlook at Weber Farms, Plat 2 in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Petke.
Introduced by Councilman Patke.
John, look alive.
Sorry, I was reading the ordinance.
It's all good.
Jeez, apologize.
It's Monday.
It's a late night.
It is.
All right, this is the final plat for the overlook at Weber Farms. You remember a couple months ago we did a final plat for just 2 lots down here at the extension of Kensal Drive. That was also part of overlook. He had 31 lots, 2 of them here, and then there was the remainder of the lots on the Weber farm. So they opted to put in just about all the improvements. So when you do a preliminary plat, you can either do the final plat right away and get a performance bond for all the improvements, or you can submit your construction plans and put in all the improvements ahead of time. He opted to do the latter. That's what you go out there now, all of these streets, and so this is what was approved in our office, the extension of Weber Heights Drive, and then he's got 5, and then an eyebrow, streets extending off there. So all of those are in. There is, if you see in your ordinance, attached a performance contract because there was a small amount that wasn't complete. I think it was 2 concrete panels, and then the electric is not underground yet.
Correct. With this performance bond, there's $24,320.56. That was calculated by essentially taking 10% of the construction cost of the streets themselves that has not been completed. In addition, we also had the electric, and then there's also a concern with 1 catch basin. So that's those dollar numbers that was developed to come up with that 24,000. That will remain in place until those items have been.
Right. So that has been deposited in escrow account. Once it's done, we'll do a final inspection release those funds, whether a portion or all of it, and then we'll come back for a maintenance bond, just like we just did with West Villas. But we've already had 3 applications submitted for homes here, so hopefully once this final plat's approved, we'll start splitting those out, and you'll see some new construction happening on the Weber farm. So,
Any questions or comments?
Have these roads been constructed yet?
yeah, they all went in last week, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, the concrete's down. I'm still waiting on getting some of the testing back. The majority of it, they're breaking fine. I mean, there's no issues with them. I will say with the rain events we've had, we have a little bit of erosion from behind the actual curbs themselves. It's not anything major. I think it would actually be a little bit expected at this time. What this performance bond did not have included was the final grading. They opted to go with a grading permit. That grading permit is a separate mechanism. That grading permit is still in place. So it's not really part of this. It's just a different mechanism to kind of get them going in the right direction. And then I'm still holding that escrow. I want to say it was a $4,000 escrow for grading yet as well. So we're protected that way as well.
And just to remind everybody, this corner here that you see, that's the new city limits where the street ends. That matches up with this black line for the city limits. So, because we originally requested that he connect this to Rabbit Trail, because these roads are in as well. This is an old aerial. But we're hoping the faster that those lots sell, the quicker we'll have that connection, and we'll have fire access between Rabbit Trail and Washington Heights. So, all good stuff.
Any questions or comments?
All good stuff. All good stuff.
An ordinance approving the final plat of the overlook at Weber Farms Plat 2 in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Petke?
Yes.
Waterman?
Yes.
Scornia? Moheski?
Aye.
Sullentrop?
Good stuff.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtzmeyer?
Aye.
Brinker?
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Mayor's report?
Just a reminder that this Wednesday is the MML meeting in New Haven. What's the place called? It's
Cedar Creek.
At Cedar Creek, yes. Starts at 6. Also, Franklin County Backstoppers held an event this past Saturday evening to support backstoppers for the county, and it was a very nice event, and people in the community were very generous, so they raised a lot of money.
$57,000.
How many?
$57,000.
There you go. Thank you for that number. So, anyway, okay. It was very successful. That's
City
all I have.
Administrator's report?
Yeah, I just have 2 quick items. One, just so you all received the group text today with regards to the fact that we are streaming live on YouTube now, and this was hopefully the first meeting. I don't know, I didn't get a chance to check it while we were having our lengthy meeting, but hopefully it all worked well. But we'll be in touch so that you can pass that along to your constituents or anybody that asks you questions that wants to go ahead and watch it. The goal and hopes are that that is going to be a little bit more reliable, obviously, than the Charter Cable channel has been in the past. So,
Is it going to be streamed on the same channel all the time, and will there be a link on the city website?
I think what the goal is to have a City of Washington page on YouTube. However, what you have to do is there's a certain number of likes that have to be hit before you can have that. And so I would encourage all of you to just, yeah, there you go. But go ahead and keep doing that, and then we can go ahead and have that up all the time. You'll still be able to go ahead, if you know where the link is, you'll still be able to click on it and look into it, but it's my understanding, in order to have that search for the city, that's what needs to be done, and so we don't think it's going to take long to go ahead and hit that.
So will there also be a link from the city website?
That's the goal as well.
Okay.
So, the second item, the only thing I wanted to bring up with the ordinance that you passed earlier tonight, eliminating the need for ordinances for those 3 positions, I would want to know if the council wants us to go ahead and do that retroactive back to October 1st. If you do so at that time, then that's what we have budgeted. We will just go ahead and pay that extra on this second paycheck in October. When I talked with our Mark about this, he said that we could not go ahead and pay that until this ordinance was passed. So But I would need your vote for that if you wish us to do that. Otherwise, they will start their pay on the second pay period in October at those rates.
So they would stay consistent with everybody else?
Correct.
Kind of pass the ordinance tonight before we could get
Yes,
to that step?
that's correct.
I just say move forward as is.
So what, everybody? Guess we need a motion for that, or what do we do about that?
We'll just move forward as is. If
Move
you
forward.
don't want to do it, then you don't need a vote.
Okay. There we go.
Okay?
Council,
And-
oops, I'm sorry.
And I got 2 items in executive session.
Okay. Council comments?
Any comments from councilmen? Okay.
City Attorney's report. Public vote on whether or not to hold a closed meeting to discuss personnel, legal, and real estate matters pursuant to Section 610.021 RSMO 2000. Patke?
Yes.
Waterman?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Moheski?
Nah.
Wallentrop?
No.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtzmeyer?
Aye.
Brinker?
Still not enough.
Someday. Someday.
Someday you're